Hello and welcome to our fourth CityLAB online matchmaker. I'm Patrick Byrne, project manager for CityLAB. And today we have with us Arlen Leeming, who is going to tell us about his challenge, Accelerating Climate Resilience. This is the fourth one that we've had so far, and you can check out all of our other recordings on our website, citylabhamilton.com. You can also see all the challenges that have been proposed and apply for them as well. So thanks for joining us today, Arlen. I was really excited. You know, we've talked a couple times now about your challenge and about the sort of all the different areas. And this is obviously a really climate change is a big component of a lot of the work that we've done at CityLAB and the work that we're trying to support. So really happy to have you on board. And I'm wondering if you can just start by giving an introduction and telling us about just about you and your role to start with at the city. And then I want to know why it's important to you and why it is important work.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Patrick. Great intro. I can do a quick little intro on myself. I'm the Senior Project Manager of Sustainability in the General Manager's Office in Public Works Department in Hamilton. It's a very new role. I started just after Thanksgiving last year. And the role is really designed to kind of pull all the divisions in public works together from a sustainability standpoint and craft kind of a common goal, common direction, and find alignment across all of the divisions as well. And we've been really working hard at that, since the end of last year. And one of the things that we have launched is a resiliency program for public works, and that's one of the main reasons why I thought there was a really great opportunity for us to be able to connect with the program at CityLAB, because we're in the process now of building some of the initial foundational elements for this program overall. Now, I will say that we've had a little bit of a wrench thrown into the mix with COVID, obviously. And so we were gunning full steam ahead in November and December. And then into January, we launched the program. We had our first workshop. We had fantastic attendance there. I believe some people here might have been there. I know, Patrick, you were. And then everything kind of exploded. And so what a lot of my time was taken to the Emergency Operations Center. And in fact, it's still there up until right now. So we're a little bit behind on the development of it, a couple months behind where we wanted to be. But we're also starting to see a light for us to be able to jump back into it. So this is very timely, and I think I think we've got some great opportunities here. What I can show you, and I can share my screen here, is the framework for the resiliency program for anyone that hasn't seen it. Can you see that there?
Yeah.
Okay. So this overall is what we're looking to build. And it is a program that we're looking to run on a yearly basis that really allows us to kind of pull all of the work of public works together and create a direction for climate resilience that allows us to ensure that we're putting our best foot forward in everything that we're doing. It kind of goes from left to right, and there's a primer on the bottom there that talks about starting with an examining, then assessing, envisioning what a shared vision for resilience would be, aligning all of our activities, and then going through an implementation program overall for them as well. And so we do things like horizon scanning, which in climate resilience is a very common term, or becoming more of a common term, of bringing everything together, making sure you are investigating all aspects of what your business touches, and figuring out what those trends in those lines of business are telling you. So everything from engagement and communications to doing shocks and stresses assessments on the work that we're doing, and in the work that we do in public works, there's a lot of acute shocks and a lot of chronic stresses that we face on a daily basis with our work. We then start to develop an inventory of actions that are either currently taking place or are planned or could potentially be funded, so that we really know all of the items at play. We do an ongoing internal review to bring out new ideas. And in fact, at the beginning of this year, at the session, Patrick, that you were at, we had this moonshot opportunity where we had all public works staff bring moonshots to the table. We have over 300 of them. And these are ideas that, are largely considered impossible, things that may have sat on the corner of people's desks for years that just didn't have the funding, but, could change the course of how we do things forever. And so we really want to tease those things out and start to support those, because that's what changes the game. And we want those to be in the forefront. So really conducting that internal review on a regular basis, making sure we're aligned with corporate and departmental priorities as well. From a corporate standpoint, we have other departments in the city, and they have all of their fantastic programs operating. So we want to make sure that we're aligning with them and also supporting them as well, and supporting the corporate message of climate change and climate resilience that the city has. And then we have, as many of you know, a corporate climate change task force that is representative of leadership across the departments. And we want to make sure we're aligning with them. So I myself and a couple of the other public works staff members, we are part of that corporate climate change task force. So that gives us kind of an opportunity to ensure that that we're maintaining the alignment that we need. So that's kind of what kicks it all off. It's that, that data-driven opportunity to collect all that information and ensure that we're painting the right picture when we're building a resiliency program. That rolls into a resiliency assessment. So we're assessing where we are at every single year. We then choose key challenges out of that assessment that we want to tackle. That then becomes a shared vision for a more resilient public works. From there, we actually build a living resiliency strategy. So something that we can consistently update, that we revisit on an annual basis, and we ensure that the focus areas, goals, and actions, and then inevitable priority actions that we pursue are kind of really tied into what the horizon scan in the beginning is telling us, so that we're following the trends and we are doing what's needed and actually achieving kind of that maximum impact in the work that we're doing. And then from there, we go into an institutionalization and priority implementation. So this is, revamping our business cases and our funding partnerships, focusing on collaborative implementation across the department, but also with a lot of the other organizations in the city and anchor institutions from your teams. Making sure that we're monitoring and assessing and tracking our key performance indicators, and really, really listening to what the data is telling us. We want it to be a very data-driven process and a science-based process. And then sharing those best practices, making sure we're sharing what works for us, what doesn't work, and celebrating successes along the way as well, and also recognizing failures and learning from those. And so you can see down in the bottom there, we have kind of a Resiliency Summit that we're looking to host every year that kind of talks about those successes and failures, shares the best practices, and allows us to reset for the next year on what some of those challenges are going to be. So it's normally when we go through this presentation, it's about an hour and a half. So that's a really high level snapshot of what we're doing. There is a lot there. And believe it or not, it's not done either. We also have 2 support programs, and on the bottom there you can see them. One is a Resilient Futures program, where we look at trend impact analysis, scenario projection, and create an annual futures report on what trends are essentially driving climate resilience in Hamilton or in Ontario, or looking at a larger picture in what the conversations are happening around us nationally and internationally. And then this is the big one for us too, is we want to build the resiliency incubator for a lot of these things, because when you're dealing with moonshot ideas, which is what really is going to drive this program, some of those big fundamental opportunities, some of them are ready, some of them need to be developed. And we want to make sure there's an insulated and safe space to be able to develop those. So we're going to carve those off, and we're going to bring them through an incubator that allows us to, test them. The whole fail quick and fail often approach for these things is what we're going to pursue. And then once they become ready and they're baked and ready for action, we can then roll those into some priority actions for delivery as part of the work that we're going to be doing. So yeah, that's it, and that's it at a high level. And then the challenges that we submitted all relate to kind of building foundational components of this in one way or the other. But they also kind of take into account the changes that we're seeing as it relates to COVID-19 as well. And so we're kind of excited about that because, although COVID has been a crazy thing and a very negative thing overall, there's always lessons to be learned, and there's always things that you can take away from it. And we really want to focus on finding ways to be able to take key messages and key learnings out of that and bring them into this. So I'd say that's it in a nutshell. Anyway, it's a very high level overview, but I think it kind of paints the picture.
Yeah, this is great, and this is a really fantastic graphic for getting a sense of that larger strategy. And I think for folks working within institutions always understand that there's lots of different levels and dots to connect before things sort of move forward, right? And so having this roadmap is a fantastic piece that's going to really guide the work well. Thanks for that, Arlen.
No problem.
And I'm just thinking too of zooming out for a second. We sort of dove into your the program that you're building and the how that fits in with public works in the city. But I want to also just sort of throw out something for you too of like, how does, I think something we think about as folks who are educators in this room and folks who are municipal workers, right? We're trying to affect larger change, right? And can you sort of comment on that piece around how the particulars fit into the larger vision that the city has and the climate emergency and why that sort of work is important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the main drivers behind this is, kind of fundamental change in how we do things. So Dan McKinnon, our general manager at the session in January, said, he's very supportive of kind of taking some of these risks for major rewards and how we can potentially change the game in this. And when it comes to climate resilience and climate change overall, we know that to move the needle, you have to take some pretty significant risks. You got to try some things that may not have been tried before, things that there was something there, but it wasn't possible at times. So that's what we're trying to create here, a system that allows us to take some of those risks, but takes those risks in a way that they're manageable. So with an incubator, making sure that we've got a very, very big idea that could fundamentally change the course of how we do things forever. We want to give it a fair chance. And so, as Dan is saying, wanting to take risks, but take calculated risks, that allows us to be able to do that. We pull that into an incubator. We insulate it with some of the greatest minds in the city, including some of the staff at the city, but also with all our partners, and try and solve some of these big things together. And then bring them back online and implement them, and really. Give a shot to some of these ideas that were largely considered impossible, but we know are not impossible if you insulate them with the proper support. And so that's what we're really trying to do. And a lot of times, and you see it, and I've seen it, and it's very, very common in every large organization and every large urban region. Some of the big picture ideas, they're so large that people can't see how they all come together. They can't see the pieces, materializing. And a lot of times they get left and other things get picked up that, are great too. But we want to provide an opportunity to showcase and provide and shine light on some of these big picture things that could change the game forever. So how does that, that relates to the direction that the city is going with this, in the fact that, in the corporate climate change task force meetings, we're sitting there thinking, they're daunting challenges that we're facing over the next, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We need some really creative solutions on being able to solve some of these things. Status quo is just not going to solve it for us anymore. So, how do we take those next steps in a way that allows us to test some of these things in a calculated and in manageable way? And that's what this is designed to do.
And that whole ethos is really important to us at CityLAB, and it helps with that vision of getting people out there, getting students in there, getting faculty in there to try things out in a bit of a lower stakes environment, and to help move those things forward. So there's I think there's so many good ways that we can that with that spirit of collaboration, right? That really good things can come and to bring some new ideas forward. I'll
also say this as well. There's no better ideas than the ideas that come out of the students' minds. At that time in your life, you're at kind of like your creative peak. Some of the ideas that students bring to the table, they stop you in your tracks, and some of the solutions that they have, they absolutely just stop you in your tracks. And that's what we want for this. We want to create a system that embraces that type of thinking. And so, when a student has this off the wall idea about, whatever it is, we want to say, what? Here, we have a mechanism to be able to maybe test that and see where that goes. But before we do all of that, we need to build the foundational elements of the program. And that's where I think there's another great opportunity of bringing some of those, really bright minds at their creative peak together to help us build some of the foundational pieces. So.
For sure. Yeah. So before we get into some questions from our faculty member, I'm sure there's lots to talk about here, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you envision or student involvement at this point, like going forward for the fall semester, what that might look like for you, what sort of areas you're thinking about, and we can share you put together a great list of 11 sort of topic areas within this bigger piece. that I think allows people to imagine their intervention potential ways to start projects. So I don't know if you could tell us a bit more about that stuff in particular and that sort of general framework of what you're thinking for student involvement.
Sure. I think it probably varies with every one of the ideas, because the ideas are, they are quite varied overall. So, but I'm open to any thoughts or suggestions on how to best involve the students in them. I guess it depends on the experience level, the comfort level, the interest overall. But if there's a student or a group of students that are just absolutely raring to go and incredibly interested in this and have some fantastic ideas around it and are coming in with guns a-blazing sort of thing, I'll integrate them as much as we possibly can in every aspects of it. And I'm very serious when I say that the ideas that come out of students' minds are the ideas that are inevitably going to change the game on this. And so any type of support that I can provide, I absolutely will. And I like to leave it open like that too. I find that one of the worst things that you can do essentially is contain the process too much, because it does restrict that creative thought, and a lot of the solutions to these problems require some very creative minds to be able to solve. And so I like to leave it open and then just find a way to embrace the direction that they're going and support them in the work that we do. And we have a vision of what this is going to inevitably look like. I also have an understanding of how to piece all of this together. So as the students are working on these things and as these ideas are coming out and as the creative processes are unfolding, it's also a little bit of a real-time challenge in being able to piece it in to build the foundation too, and figure out how that's done and how best to do that. So
yeah, for sure. And it might be really interesting in the types of folks who are interested, because I think there's actually really, even in this meeting here, there's a really interesting diversity of experience and approaches that could be taken from the coursework, and there could be ways to integrate all those different pieces in, because it's so broad and also so connected, right?
Yeah, and so what just another thing I'd mention on that is I'm a real fan of the collaborative process. I love the idea of bringing people with diverse backgrounds together and having them solve problems and the experiences and the ideas that kind of come out of that. And so that being said, CityLAB through this program here is kind of one avenue for us to be able to do that. But and Patrick, as you know, and I know that Richard's going to be coming on hopefully later on here, but we're also working with the W. Booth School, Epic Master, on some of these things too. And I'm relatively new to Hamilton, but I have had the opportunity of meeting some fantastic people in a lot of the anchor institutions and elsewhere. But I'm very interested in meeting more, and this is one of the reasons why I was so excited about the call today. It's my kind of interest in bringing all those groups together and finding ways to be able to collaborate on some of these things too. So, and I think that's also very beneficial for students, to see and to experience opportunities to work cross-functionally with other groups to help solve their problems too. Because as we know, we live in a world that it's absolutely based on communication and partnership to be able to solve problems. So I'm very interested in that opportunity.